Hey there, seventh graders. Today we are going to work on percents and see how percents are related to all this proportional reasoning stuff we've been doing. Percents are just a ratio, right? And if you don't remember that, we're going to first work on reviewing what we know about percents. Yesterday you did a little bit of that. Let's get out page 50. This is what we're looking at. Page 50, and let's learn how we can use proportions and equivalent ratios to help us solve problems involving percents. All right, on the top of page 50, when setting up a percent proportion, first of all, this all comes from the definition of percent. So let's come over here and let's tell ourselves that the word percent literally means, okay, this word percent literally means, the per means out of. That's why when we say like $5 per hour, we're saying it's out of 1 hour. So per means out of. And cent, like cents, there's 100 cents in a dollar. A century is 100 years. So cent means 100. So the word percent literally means out of 100. That's what percent is. That's what a percent is. It makes it a ratio that's always out of 100. And we use it in our society all the time because it makes it a consistent comparison out of 100. So if you have 95% in a class, you have 95 out of 100. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the class was only worth 100 points, but it was converted to something that can always be put out of 100. Okay? So when setting up a percent proportion, we always put the percent over 100. Because that's what percent literally means, is out of 100. So it's going to be out of 100. Now that's going to be a ratio, okay? Now there's always going to be some other part of the problem, and you'll see what I mean as we go forward. The percent goes out of 100. There's also something that we call a base, B-A-S-E. A base is the number that comes after the word of, O-F. Not, if you're like, what is Shagna? I'll show you in just a second. It comes after the word of most of the time. Sometimes it's not there, so I'll give you other tips for how to recognize it. And it goes on the bottom of the other ratio. It comes after the word of because it's what it's out of. Like if percent always means out of 100, the percent always has 100 on the bottom. But not every single thing is out of 100, right? Like if you have a math test that's out of 12, then your score is out of 12, and the base is 12, okay? Now, to kind of put all this together and see what we mean, let's come to this box here where we have our general setup of percent proportion. We're going to use this a ton over the next little while to help us set up and solve percent problems. So a percent proportion always starts like this, P over 100. Now, if it starts with P over 100, can you guess what the P stands for? I'm going to put an equals here. P, of course, stands for percent. I'm going to write that over here. P is the percent. And I know that because I just put it out of 100. Okay? P over 100. This is going to be the percent right here. And the other side is something that we're going to get used to. P over 100 equals A over B. Just kind of whisper that to yourself real quick. P over 100 equals A over B. Go ahead. P over 100 equals A over B. Say that to yourself over and over and over again because that's a setup that you need to get memorized. P over 100 equals A over B. Well, what are the rest of these things? Okay, we know P is the percent. A is what we call the part. Yes, I know that also starts with P, but we already have a P for percent, and that's an important one, so we need a different letter. So we do A is the part, and B is the base. Or I'm going to put in parentheses here. You can also think of that like the total, okay? Because it won't always come after the word of, but you can always think to yourself, what would this be out of? All right, so let's look at just some basic examples first. So this part right here, finding part of a base, means that in this section, I'm going to make a little note to the side here. In this section, what we are finding, and you'll see hints like this on your Canvas quiz. It'll say, hint, this means you're finding A. Hint, this means you're finding B. It does that on the first few and then it stops doing that. But if you're finding the part of a base, that means you are finding A, which is this letter right here. So we're gonna plug in, here's what's gonna happen is you're gonna know every spot except for one of these. So we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4 spots. One of them is always 100. You might know P and B and you're looking for A. You might know A and B and you're looking for P, or you might know P and A and you're looking for B. There's just gonna be one that you're missing in the scenario. So let's make sure we can read all these problems, and even if I didn't give you this hint over here, would you be able to tell which one you're looking for? Sometimes it's easier to figure out which ones are given to you, and then by process of elimination, you can figure out which one you're missing. So for example, right here, it says, what is 60%? Hey, there's that word of. The base comes after the word of. Will you guys all underline this in your notes right here? The fact that this says of 80 tells me that 80 is the base. Because if it's of 80, that means it's out of 80. Something out of 80, well, that means 80 is the base. It's the total, and the base goes on the bottom. Okay, I'm gonna start with the percent side though. I always start with that because it's usually easier to pick out. Hey, look, there's a percent symbol right there. Are we all familiar with that sign and that it means percent? Well, as soon as I see a percent symbol, what am I gonna put it out of? Always 100. So here we go. This is what we mean by P over 100. P over 100 equals, there's the first half of my proportion. P over 100, percent always goes over 100. P over 100 equals A over B. Which one of those do I know right now? I know the B because it comes after the word of. That only leaves me with one missing spot, and that missing spot must be A. P over 100 equals A over B. It's the percent proportion, and it's really going to help us because as soon as you set it up like this, don't you guys know how to solve a proportion like that? I'm going to say something that might refresh your memory, something called cross multiplying, right? We can absolutely still use that for percent problems. It's super helpful. And I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to multiply these two. 60 times 80 is 4,800 because 6 times 8 would be 48, and I add 2 zeros to it. You learned about all those place values in 5th grade, right? And then this is 100A. And now to finish solving this, divide by 100, divide by 100. That part is not new. That's cross multiplying. We've worked on that before. And 4,800 divided by 100 is back to 48. You can type it in a calculator if you need to. But we just found the part A equals 48. Now watch what we can do to double check this as well. It's always really good to make sure you have all of your number sense in order so that you know, how do I know if this answer makes sense? Does it make sense that 48 is 60% of 80? Well, watch what I'm going to do to find out. If I do 48 out of 80, you ready? 48 divided by 80, I get 0.6. And if I times that by 100, that's the decimal for 60%. Huh. All these rational numbers really do work together. So you found the part out of 80 that is equal to 60%. Let's try that again. What is 42% of 175? There's all my hints. I see a percent symbol. That means immediately I'm going to put it out of 100, 42 out of 100. And the fact that this says of 175 means 175 is what I'm out of, so it's the base and it goes on the bottom. And once again, that leaves me looking for A. All right, let's cross multiply. 42 times 175. I might need my calculator for that one. I get 7,350 equals 100A. I'm going to divide by 100, divide by 100. You can type that in your calculator or use your mental math and understand how dividing by 100 works. Moves those decimal places. 73.5. So what we're saying there is that 73.5 is 42%, less than half, a little bit less than half of 175. Once again, though, we can check that, right? Watch. 73.5 divided by, it was out of 175. 42%. That's the decimal form times by 100. There's the percent form. Okay, so sometimes you know P and you know B and you're looking for A. That's finding the part of the base. Sometimes you know A and B and you are looking for P. In this section, finding percent means find P. All of these problems are going to use P over 100 equals A over B. It's just a matter of deciding what do I know and what am I missing. So I can plug in what I know and then cross multiply and find what I'm missing. As soon as I see these words, what percent, and I notice that there's no percent symbol in this problem, do you know what I immediately write is P over 100? Because I immediately know I don't know the percent. It's not in the problem anywhere. So I know that's my variable, P over 100 equals A over B. How do I know which is which? Well, this is the point where some students say, well, you put the smaller one on top and the bigger one on the bottom. Be careful of that. That is not always going to be the case. We do have things that are over 100%. We'll learn about them a lot over the next couple of weeks. Remember to focus on whatever it's out of. See that right there? Come after the word of. Of 40 means 40 goes on the bottom, and that means the only place for 16 to go is right there as A, the part. But pay attention to which one is the total, not just which one's bigger or smaller. This says of 40, so it's on the bottom. P over 100 equals A over B. We can still cross multiply to solve this. This one goes 40P equals 1600. Now I divide by 40, divide by 40. 16 divided by 4 would be 4. 1600 divided by 40, you can cancel off 1 0 and you'll still have 1 0 left. So the percent is 40, which means I can just put the percent symbol on it because it's a percent. Okay, what we're saying is that 16 is 40% of 40. Okay, well, I could check this. 16 out of 40, let's see if we get 40%. 0.4 is the decimal form of 40%. Okay, we're using equivalent ratios to answer these questions. All right, let's try that again. This one once again says what percent, and I don't see a percent symbol in here, so that immediately tells me that this is P over 100. Okay, to get the rest of it, of 400, that means 400 is my base because that's what it's out of, is 34. All right, P times 400. Okay, so that side's going to say 400P. 34 times 100 is 3400. Now to finish solving this, I go divide by 400, divide by 400. 3,400, I'm typing it in my calculator right now. 3,400 divided by 400, 8.5. So I just got P equals 8.5, which means I've got 8.5%. Which makes sense that it's a small percent because 34 out of 400 is a really small portion of that. Okay, you will have some word problems too, but it's all the same stuff. So look what this says. In a classroom of 25 students, right now that's saying to me that's my total. That's what it's out of. 16 students are wearing sandals. Here's the words what percent of those students are wearing sandals. That means I'm missing the percent. So I'm going to start right away with P over 100. And then it's going to be 16 out of 25. Focus on which one sounds like the total, even if they don't always say the word of, because sometimes they don't. Focus on which one it's out of, which one is the total. All right, now I'm ready to multiply. 25P, I'm doing cross multiplication, equals 1600. Divide by 25, divide by 25. 1600 divided by 25 is 64. 64% of students wearing sandals were wearing sandals. If you were typing this into Canvas, all you'd have to type in is the 64% right there. Okay. We know how to find A if that's missing. So we know the percent, we know the base, we're looking for the part. We also know how to find P, where we know the part and we know the base, but we're missing the percent. So what's left? Well, we gotta find B, find the base. So to do that, I'm going to say, okay, finding the base. This one means we're finding B, which is also the total, which is the one that goes on the bottom. Okay, so here, notice they say, this is my hint that if I didn't know this because it didn't have a heading for me, because when you have to practice this, it's not going to already be put in nice little categories for you. The fact that they say of what number and we don't know what it's out of is my hint that I am missing the total. But if you're reading a story problem and you're like, hey, some students were surveyed and 46% of them said that they ride the bus to school. If that's 200 students, how many total students were surveyed? Hey, you're missing the total, right? The total is the base. Now, here's my percent. So as soon as I see my percent, I put it over 100. Percent always goes over 100, P over 100. If it says of what number, that means this other number, 42, is actually my A, my part, and I am missing the base. P over 100 equals A over B. Now I'm ready to cross multiply. 30 times B is 30B. 100 times 42 is 4200. Divide by 30, divide by 30. 4200 divided by 30, oops, I hit times 30 and that didn't make any sense. Divided by 30, B equals 140. We just found the total. And we can check this by saying, okay, 42 out of 140 is supposed to be 30%. That is the decimal equivalent of 30%. Okay, let's try this one more time. Last one. Look, there's a percent. That's immediately going to go over 100. Anytime you see a percent, put it over 100, P over 100. This says of what number? That means I know the part and I am missing the total. All right, here you go, cross multiply. 80 times B is 80B, 80B. 40 times 100 is 4,000. Divide by 80, divide by 80, and B equals 50. 4,000 divided by 80 equals 50. What we're saying there is that 40 out of 50 is 80%, which it is, because 40 out of 50 is 4/5, and 4/5 as a decimal is 0.8, which is 80%. P over 100 equals A over B. That's what we are using to solve problems here. We're putting together our knowledge of equivalent ratios and cross multiplying with percents.